Good morning, friends. Uh, I think yesterday we have discussed about the structure and components of ecosystem yesterday, and in the process of continuation of this topic ecosystem, today we are dealing with the things like energy flow in an ecosystem. If time permits, let's continue our discussion with the food chain. What does I mean? Literally, it mean and the types of food chains and the operations how it's possible. So first of all, let's deal with the energy flow in an ecosystem. We have nice diagrammatic representations here. Hope you'll be very much clear by going through those pictures which I am going to play simultaneously. Okay, now, I think first of all it's very much important to know about the energy flow. Literally speaking, technically speaking, I should say, when dealing with particularly with science disciplines, uh, there is a very good emphasis on each and every definition. So at this point of time, uh, you definitely need to know the definition of energy first of all, what it literally means. Basically, if anybody is asked a question like, I'm going to define energy, a layman asks you, tell me the definition of energy. How can you define? How can you define in technical terms? How can you define? Anybody? Okay, let me explain. Energy has been defined as the capacity to do work. Energy has been defined as the capacity to do work. And at the same time, energy exists in two forms. We all very well know, but generally, even the laymen also know these two types of energies by experiencing. They know by experiencing, not by terms of, subject, not in terms of subject. Many people you can find they are very much engaged in the mechanic field, the motor field. They very well know about these two forms of energy. Not only the people engaged in motor field, generally anybody, each and everyone has to experience these two kinds of energies uh, physically, physically, not in terms of, techniques. Okay. Potential energy means it is the energy at rest. Potential energy is the energy at rest. That means it is nothing but a stored energy. The energy generally we can apply or we can, what I mean to say is, human beings, say for example, you can take example ourselves only. We used to consume our food. We will consume food twice or thrice a day. Basic thing is that generally how much energy is required to perform the metabolic activities or any other activities we require. We generally need some energy. And even in terms of economy also, in terms of economy or economics is concerned, uh, to measure a person's financial status in sense, who is, people living with the poor standards or with poor economical, with poor what could I say, economic status means. Basically, in India, not only in India, I think in across the globe, uh, people can be measured in terms of economy, like the people above the poverty line, and the people that below poverty line. That are the general technical terms which can be applied on a global scale. This can be applied on a global scale to measure the financial potential of a person. Potential of a person. When you talk about these, these two terms which I said, which I uttered right now, like above poverty line and below poverty line, they have, truly speaking, we have technical grounds, and in turn, this below poverty line or above poverty line, which just now I have mentioned, It varies with the people living in the areas. If say for example the people living in urban areas, they have different parameters, and you can measure them in different standards. And the people living in rural area, they can measure in different standards, and the standards may be the amount of calories which they gain or which they require. It depends upon the professions or the activities they take up in that local area, or in that respective field, or in that respective sector. If I say that below poverty line, in sense, you may get confused. What is that below poverty line? Below poverty line is nothing but, I mean, it is generally a technical term related to economics. But in what way it is related to our subject means, you should not get confused. You never get confused, because the people living below poverty line, in sense, you say for example you take a person living in a village or rural areas. That person, he requires, more than 2100 calories per day to in order to perform all the activities, either metabolically or physically. Definitely we require more than 2100 of kilocalories per day. And if a person in an urban area, he maybe require nearly 2100 calories is more sufficient for him to perform his regular activities, or the metabolic activities, or the things which he is supposed to perform in a day. So that is the parameter. That is the parameter that the amount of calories which you take, or which is required for a human being to perform his activities. So that is the stored energy. I think that can be possibly called as a potential energy. That means it is stored energy that is capable of performing work. That means the potential energy is nothing but the energy. It is at rest. That means that is stored energy, and that energy is capable of performing work. And also similarly, the other one is the kinetic energy. This is the kinetic energy. And kinetic energy, if I put it in technical terms, that is the energy which can be called as a free energy. It is nothing but a free energy. So kinetic energy is the energy of motion. That is literally the energy of motion, and it's a free energy, not in the form of a stored energy. I think this is sufficient to discuss about the types of energy, that is potential and kinetic energy. It's enough, I think. And further in continuation, one line I would like to say here. The kinetic energy, it results in work performance at the expense of potential energy. You please underline, or you please highlight this point. I repeat once again. The kinetic energy is the energy of motion. It results in work performance at the expense of potential energy. Okay? It means the conversion of potential energy into kinetic energy involves the imparting of motion. If we come across the source of energy required by all living organisms, if you want to know about the source of energy, then we have to go back to the fundamentals of ecosystem. Where from this energy is coming, and what is the bloody origin involved for the source of energy. I think everybody is very much, we all experience a few things. With the, education is not at all required. For few things to examine, or few things to experience. In that sense, my question is that what could be the probable source of energy for this entire universe? Can anybody tell me? Can anybody make me clear about the source of energy on this planet Earth? Okay, I will tell you. The source of energy on this planet Earth is nothing but the sun. Here, what happens means the solar energy, which is being radiated, or the radiant energy from the sun, the solar energy from the sun is being converted into chemical energy. So the solar energy or the radiant energy, the sunlight is not used as it is in that natural form. It is not used in natural form. That should be converted into into chemical form or chemical energy. That in turn is done by the green plants. That in turn is done by the green plants. So the existence of life on planet Earth is basically due to the availability of the energy, on planet Earth, and that too, that energy is from the sun. The ultimate source is the sun, and that solar energy is being trapped by the green plants, and that in turn is being converted into chemical energy. And as I think, I remember that we have discussed about the process of photosynthesis. Yesterday we have discussed the process of photosynthesis means, I once again repeat the definition or the statement. I mean, what literally photosynthesis means. Photosynthesis is nothing but the conversion of this radiant energy into chemical energy. And radiant energy is converted into chemical energy with the help of the carbon dioxide, the water molecules, and the green colored pigment, nothing but the chlorophyll. And if you go in detail or in depth, you can find many types of chlorophyll pigments like chlorophyll A, B, X, Y, Z, and the phycobilins, the xanthophylls, carotenoids, X, Y, Z. All these things, it comes under the pigments, the pigment system on a whole, if you call them. So with the help of chlorophyll pigments, with the help of water molecules, and by absorbing or trapping the carbon dioxide and utilizing the solar energy, the green plants has the potential to convert this energy into chemical energy, which is in the form of glucose, which in the form of the simplest form of carbohydrates. I repeat once again, the simplest form of carbohydrates is nothing but glucose. That is the chemical energy which is being produced by the green plants. So, in this regard, or due to this particular reason, the green plants have been described as the producers. They are called as the producers. And so, the producers forms the fundamentals or the basis for the ecosystem. The producers forms the basis for the ecosystem. They lay the foundations for any kind of ecosystem. For any kind of ecosystem, as I think I remember, we have discussed about many the types of ecosystems that are operating on global scale, on a local scale, or a limited area scale, expected in that sense. So it is confined to this particular point. The energy, the chemical energy. So it is very much clear that the green plants are the main things, are the main. The ones which converts the solar energy into the chemical energy. Okay, through the process called as photosynthesis. So the types of energies, the potential energy, the kinetic energy, it is enough to discuss in brief about them. We need not to go into details. And this energy flow basically is based on two important laws. It is based on two important laws. These laws, the important laws are nothing but laws of thermodynamics. Basically, we come across in physics, I think, the laws of thermodynamics, and here we can apply in this aspect of energy flow in an ecosystem also. We can apply in energy flow in an ecosystem also. And of course, we need not go in detail about these two laws. The laws of the first law of thermodynamics and the second law of thermodynamics. And I think I should mention one or two lines about them, I think so. So when coming across the first law of thermodynamics, I think you better note it. It states that the amount of energy in the universe is constant. The first law of thermodynamics, it states that the amount of energy in the universe is constant. It may change from one form to another, but it can neither be created nor destroyed. Understand? The first law of thermodynamics, it states that the amount of energy in the universe is constant. It may change from one form to another, but it can neither be created nor destroyed. Light energy can be neither created nor destroyed as it passes through the atmosphere. I think this is the classical example. When we are supposed to discuss about the first law of thermodynamics, we better discuss about the light energy. Why? It can neither be created nor destroyed. because it passes through atmosphere. No, it is very much evident. We are experiencing every day that light is passing through atmosphere. It can neither be created nor destroyed. So this light energy is a classic examples for the. It can be stated as a classical example for the first law of thermodynamics. Okay, I think that's enough talking about this first law of thermodynamics. And now let's pass on to, or let's move to the second law of thermodynamics. Yeah, the second law of thermodynamics, it states that non-random energy. Non-random energy means, I'll make you clear, that may be mechanical, chemical, or radiant energy. These three forms of energies, I mean mechanical, the chemical, or the radiant, they are called as non-random energies. So it states, the second law of thermodynamics, it states that non-random energy cannot be changed without some degradation into heat energy. Am I clear? The second law of thermodynamics, it states that non-random energy, I repeat once again, it states in the second law of thermodynamics states that non-random energy, I mean that is nothing but mechanical, chemical or radiant, these three forms, they cannot be changed without some degradation into heat energy. Okay, the change of energy from one form to another form takes place in such a way that a part of energy assumes waste. It assumes a waste form. I mean heat energy that goes out, that passes out, that goes out. The change of energy from one form to another takes place in such a way that a part of energy assumes waste form. Some of the energy, it is released into atmosphere as heat. That is waste form. So in this way of transformation, the capacity of energy to perform work is decreased. You see, the total amount of energy which is produced is never being utilized or exploited to perform the various works or various things which are assigned. A little part or some part of energy is being wasted and is being released into the atmosphere. That is, it is in the form of heat. So the way after transformation, the capacity of energy to perform work is decreased. Thus energy flows from higher level to lower level. I think it is very much clear. Energy flows from higher level to lower level. And again, I think I already explained that the main source of energy is only sun. It is only the sun. Okay. You should note one point. Approximately 57% of sun energy is absorbed in the atmosphere and scattered in the space. Okay. Not 100% of the solar energy or the rays or the light is being which is emitted from the sun is not reaching the Earth's surface. Only approximately, I think it is 57%, if I am not mistaken. That part is only being absorbed by the atmosphere and scattered in the space. Some 35% is spent to heat water and land areas and to evaporate water. Okay, the water. Sometimes we all experience that nowadays. I mean, it's rainy season now, so we are all of us very much aware that a few areas are being inundated or suffering from floods. Many cities, even from like cities like Hyderabad, Mumbai, etc. We are experiencing the floods. It's being inundated also. And if you see 1 or 2 days later, no, you don't find a drop of water, drop of water also. And all this is due to nothing but the evaporation process. This all is due to evaporation process. So that could be the better example which I have right now explained. So some 35% of this energy, sun energy, is spent to heat the water and land areas and to evaporate water. Okay, and of the approximately 8% of light, only 8% of light energy striking planet surface. Okay, if you imagine or if you take example that 100% of light is being emitted by the sun, only 8% is being received or being striking the planet Earth's surface. Okay, other remaining 10%, 15% is reflected back at something expired. Is you leave it, you don't worry about it. And one point I should mention here: on an average of only 2% of total light energy striking on a leaf is used in photosynthesis, and rest is transformed into heat energy. I think you got my point. Only 8% of the light is being striking the planet Earth, and only 2% of this light energy is being used in photosynthesis, and rest is transformed into heat energy. Okay, with this lesson, one thing is very much clear: abundant and nano and enormous quantum of energy is being, light is being produced, but apart of it, only 8% is being touching the ground or the earth surface, and only 2% is touching the leaf surface. So I think it's nothing more than 10% of light is being utilized for these life sources on planet Earth, and the remaining 90% is being utilized for various purposes, and that could not be converted into chemical form. Okay, right. Let's move on to the main topic, which is the energy flow in an ecosystem. Okay, I think you people are getting my point. What is energy, and source of the ultimate source of energy, and how it is being converted or transformed, and the types of energies. That is potential and kinetic, etc. And what quantum or what amount of the sunlight is being reaching the Earth's surface, and what amount of this sunlight is being involved in the process of photosynthesis, and all these things. I think I made very much clear. Okay, now let's move on to energy flow in ecosystems. Okay, let's move on to energy flow in ecosystems. In simple terms, if a layman is being asked what is energy flow in ecosystem, okay, I'll put it in two lines. Basically, I should explain technically, no. So it goes like this. Okay, living organisms can use energy in two forms, that is radiant and fixed energy. So radiant energy is in the form of electromagnetic waves such as light. Okay, that the other one is fixed energy. Fixed energy is potential chemical energy bound in various organic substances which can be broken down in order to release their energy content. And organisms that can fix radiant energy utilizing inorganic substances to produce organic molecules are called autotrophs. These autotrophs are nothing. Earlier we have discussed, like while describing the process of photosynthesis by plants. No, we have given a technical. We have coined a technical word. Nothing but it's producers. So producers are autotrophs. Now nothing but the same. Producers are nothing. Autotrophs means the living beings are the ones which can prepare their own food materials by utilizing the natural resources. They are called as autotrophs. And ultimately, autotrophs are nothing but the producers, which forms the basis of an ecosystem in any pattern or in any style or in any scale. So, okay. So autotrophs are the producers. They are nothing but the green plants, right? Organisms that cannot obtain energy from abiotic source but dependent on energy-rich organic molecules synthesized by autotrophs are called heterotrophs. So there is a good definition for heterotrophs also. Please note down. Heterotrophs means they are the organisms that cannot obtain energy from abiotic sources but depend on energy rich organic molecules that are synthesized by autotrophs. Okay, so now we are very much aware that what are heterotrophs and what are autotrophs. Autotrophs are the ones are the living beings which can prepare their own food materials by using abiotic components, whereas heterotrophs are the ones which should depend upon the autotrophs for their life source. Okay, next. Those which obtain energy from living organisms are called consumers. They are called consumers. And those which obtain energy from dead organisms are called as decomposers. Okay, fine. Now we have come across four types of, four groups, that is autotrophs, heterotrophs, and in these heterotrophs you can classify or divide two other groups. They are consumers and decomposers. The consumers are the one which depend upon the living organisms. Okay, those which obtain energy from living organisms are called consumers, and the organisms which obtain energy from dead organisms, and they are called as decomposers. I think it's very much clear. Okay. Now let's move on to the ultimate topic, the energy flow. Okay, just note it down. I'll give a paragraph here. Just note it down. When the light energy falls on, when the light energy falls on the green surfaces of plants, a part of it is transformed into chemical energy. Okay, which is stored in various organic products in the plants. When the herbivores consume plants as food and convert chemical energy accumulated in plant products into kinetic energy, degradation of energy will occur through its conversion into heat. All these things we have already discussed. Okay, when herbivores are consumed by carnivores of the first order, they are called as secondary consumers, and further degradation will occur. Similarly, when primary consumers are consumed by top carnivores, again energy will be degraded. Okay, and now it's time for us to know about the trophic levels. I mean, what are these trophic levels, and why do we require to discuss about these trophic levels, and what do they literally mean? Okay, while we are discussing or while we are studying about ecosystem or things related about ecology, it is very much important for us to know about few technical words or the things which carries technical importance. So it's a time for us to know about the trophics or the trophic levels, XYZ, etc. Basically, generally, we need to know about the pyramids, like I mean the ecological pyramids we have in this curriculum also. Generally, what I personally feel is that if you are trying to discuss about these trophic levels and all, I think this is nascent stage to discuss about these trophic levels and all. If you go through or if you study about the structure of pyramids and the things involved in ecological pyramids, then you can have a very clear idea about the trophic levels XYZ. Okay, so anyhow, now it's time for us to discuss about trophic levels. So I try my level best to put it in a very what I should say is in simple terms. Okay, right, trophic level. You just imagine earlier in this lesson also we have discussed about the energy source of energy, and how the primary source of energy, what in what kind it is, and in what way it has been transformed, and that solar energy to chemical energy, and this chemical energy in turn which is being utilized by the other organisms which depend upon these living organisms at various levels, and all we have discussed. No, so trophic level means nothing but um the group of living organisms. I mean, say for example, if you talk about these autotrophs or producers, they are nothing but the ultimate ones which trap the sunlight and they convert the sunlight into chemical energy, and they forms the basis for life source on planet Earth. So if you imagine in the form of a pyramid, if you imagine in the form of a pyramid, the base or the foundation, it is occupied by the producers only. If you are supposed to, I mean, if there is any chance for operating an ecosystem in any locality or in any scale or in any habitat, generally there should be a foundation or a base in any kind of. So in that context, in any case or in any kind of ecosystem or in any scale or at any point of time or at any given unit, if you are supposed to know what is the basis for this ecosystem, they are ultimately the producers. So the green plants or the autotrophs, they forms the basis for the ecosystem, and they are the fundamental ones which occupy the base of an ecosystem, which occupies the base of ecosystem. So the first level or the first trophic level is occupied by the green plants. I think it is clear for you. The trophic level means the group, the similar group. So green plants means they are the autotrophs. They are all confined to one level. If you draw a sketch in the form of a pyramid or an illustration, the primary things which produce energy is nothing but the autotrophs are the producers. and the domestic animals or the herbivores which depends upon the autotrophs, they occupy the second level or they occupy the second trophic level. And likewise the things which depend upon these I mean what should I say, these herbivores, they are the carnivores. That depends upon the herbivores. They are the carnivores, and carnivores in turn is being divided into three groups. I think they are primary, secondary, and tertiary. And in that sense only, they ultimately, while the levels are increasing, the top place is occupied by the decomposers ultimately. I think it's time for today. So thank you, dear friends. Let's continue in our next class tomorrow. Thank you.